magic of surrender. A Stoic awakening. What if holding on is what's holding you back? What if the very thing you fear letting go is the very thing blocking everything meant for you? And what if surrender isn't about defeat, but about remembering who you were before fear taught you to control everything? We live in a world that rewards control. We're praised for pushing harder, for forcing outcomes, for staying busy, for never backing down, and for always having a plan. Control has become a badge of honor, and surrender, a dirty word. Something we associate with failure, weakness, giving up. Something we avoid because it sounds like letting the world win while we stand by and do nothing. But what if we've misunderstood surrender? What if it's not weakness, but wisdom? What if it's not a collapse, but a choice? What if surrender is not about giving up, but finally giving in to the deeper rhythm of life, to the current that already knows where you're meant to go? The Stoics didn't speak of surrender as spiritual laziness. They lived it as alignment, as the act of not resisting what is outside your control. Part 1. The illusion of control. Marcus Aurelius didn't give up when things got hard. He simply stopped wasting time trying to bend reality. He acted where he could, accepted what he couldn't, and in that quiet acceptance he found power, because control is heavy. It requires you to grip tightly to things that were never really yours. Outcomes, timelines, other people, their opinions, their decisions, their love. And when you grip too tightly, you forget how to breathe. You forget how to receive. You forget how to move with grace. This isn't about giving up on goals. This is about giving up on obsession. This is about trading the exhausting illusion of total control for the deeper strength of surrender, of showing up fully, but unattached to the outcome. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to force something to be what it's not. It means you show up, take the step, speak your truth, and then release the grip. We've been taught that letting go is passive. But in reality, letting go is an act of active trust. It's trusting that even if the plan falls apart, you will not. That even if this person walks away, your worth won't go with them. That even if the outcome shifts, your value remains. It's trusting that life, like water, can only flow when you stop building dams made of fear and expectations. Try this. Look at your life right now. Where are you gripping too tightly? Where are you exhausting yourself trying to make something fit, forcing something to work, holding on to something that clearly wants to move? Ask yourself, what if I let go just 10%? What would happen if I created space just a little? Because in that space, life can breathe. And when life breathes, it speaks. And it always speaks clearly to those willing to listen, not just to fight. There's a deep magic in surrender, not the magic of control, but the magic of cooperation, of dancing with what's unfolding instead of wrestling it to the ground. And that magic is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers in the moments when you stop forcing and start flowing. Think about the times when something incredible entered your life. Was it when you were forcing it to happen? Or was it when you finally released, finally stopped gripping so tightly to the how and simply said, I'm ready however it needs to come? You see, surrender is not about sitting on the sidelines. It's about stepping onto the field with an open heart and empty hands. It's about being fully committed to the process, but unattached to the result. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate. Not just tolerating what happens, but embracing it. Not just saying, I guess this is what it is, but saying, this is exactly what I need, even if I don't yet understand why. And that's the essence of surrender. Not blind obedience, but clear alignment. You show up, you speak, you give, you do the work, and then you release what isn't yours to carry. Surrender is not collapse, it's exhale. It's the moment you stop performing, stop posturing, stop trying to convince life that you're worthy of good things, and simply receive them because you are. When you surrender, you become available. Available to truth, to direction, to the peace that only arrives when you stop trying to bulldoze your way to freedom. So today, maybe just pause, take a breath, and ask, what part of me is trying too hard to control something that isn't mine? Let that part soften. Let it loosen its grip. Let it stop trying to wrestle the river. Because the moment you stop forcing life, you finally start flowing with it. And that's where everything changes. Part 2. The Art of Letting Life. Lead. Sometimes the greatest growth doesn't come from climbing higher, but from laying something down. You've been carrying so much, expectations, memories, unspoken fears, the image of how it was supposed to go. And you've done well. You've held it together, you've shown up, you've fought. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to ask, what if I'm allowed to put this down? What if surrender is the doorway, not the dead end? We've been trained to believe that if we try hard enough, everything will fall into place, that the universe will reward effort with results, that we can make people stay, that we can force love to grow, that we can outthink uncertainty. But there's another kind of wisdom, one the Stoics knew intimately, the wisdom of letting life be what it is. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and freedom comes from letting go of what is not in your control, letting go of needing to know when, letting go of needing to be right, letting go of needing to be seen, understood, validated by someone who is not ready to do that. Surrender does not make you passive. It makes you powerful in a quieter way. It shifts your focus from outcomes to essence, from managing other people's behavior to managing your own energy, from grasping to grounding. Letting go isn't a loss of control. It's the recognition that control was never really there. You can prepare, you can show up, but you can't force timing. You can't force chemistry. You can't force healing. Healing comes when it's ready. Opportunities come when you've made space. The right people enter your life not when you scream louder, but when your silence becomes more truthful than noise ever was. Surrender is trusting that life has heard you, even in your stillness, even when you're not chasing, even when your hands are open instead of clenched. It's saying, I've done my part. Now I trust life to meet me in return. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply. But wisely, it's knowing the difference between pushing and flowing, between striving and aligning, between desperation and devotion. You are not here to control every outcome. You are here to align with truth and let that truth carry you where you're meant to go. Sometimes, life delays what you want, because who you are becoming is more important than what you're demanding, and surrender. It creates space for that becoming. You drop the old identity, the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the controller, the person who thought they had to grip tight or everything would fall apart, and instead you pick up something deeper. Stillness, clarity, a quiet confidence that says, whatever comes, I trust myself to meet it. That is Stoicism, not emotionlessness, but emotional maturity. Not detachment from life, but detachment from illusion. When you surrender, you stop begging life to bend to your fear. You start letting life speak in a new voice, one that doesn't need volume to be true, one that shows up in patterns and synchronicity and the right person arriving when you finally stopped chasing the wrong one. You don't need to understand everything to release it. You don't need to have a guarantee to walk away. You don't need to know how it ends to take the next step with peace. This is the paradox. Everything you truly need begins to find you after you stop gripping so hard trying to force it. So here's the invitation. Today, instead of planning 5 steps ahead, pause. Instead of asking, what more do I need to do? Ask, what can I allow? What can I trust? Because that posture, that energetic shift, is what unlocks new doors. Some things aren't supposed to happen when you try harder. Some things only arrive when you stop trying to be the architect of the entire universe, and instead, become the vessel. Life loves to fill empty space, but it won't compete with clutter. So if your hands are full of control, you'll miss the gifts that only open hands can hold. Surrender is not resignation, it's readiness. Readiness to receive, to adapt, to grow in ways your mind may never fully understand, but your spirit does. It's saying, I no longer fear the unknown, because I trust who I am becoming within it. That's what makes surrender powerful. Not that it changes the world outside of you, but that it returns you to yourself. Part 3. The freedom in not knowing. Sometimes we don't surrender because we think surrender means silence. We think it means erasing our desires, giving up on our dreams, letting others decide our fate. But true surrender doesn't silence your soul. It simply turns down the volume of fear so that you can finally hear the voice of truth. The Stoics weren't passive observers of life. They were active participants in a dance with fate. They showed up with strength, with clarity, with virtue. But they did not fight the current. They became students of it. They adapted. They flowed. They let go of what they could not change. And, in doing so, they transcended it. When you surrender, you stop playing tug of war with life. You drop the rope. And in that dropping, something unexpected happens. Peace arrives. Clarity returns. The path forward reveals itself. Because life is not against you, it's not punishing you. It's positioning you. But when you're consumed by resistance, you miss the deeper message. You cling to what should have been, instead of receiving what can be. You argue with what is, and block what's next. So much of our suffering is not from the pain itself, but from our refusal to feel it, face it, release it. We recycle old wounds, we repeat old stories. We demand closure from places where silence is the only answer we'll ever get. But surrender says, I'm allowed to not understand this right now. I'm allowed to walk away without a perfect ending. I'm allowed to live forward instead of clinging backward. There's power in that kind of release. There's maturity in knowing when to close the chapter, not because it's resolved, but because you've outgrown waiting. You're not weak for surrendering. You're wise. You're not quitting. You're conserving energy for what actually aligns. Because what you chase out of desperation rarely becomes what you want long term, but what you invite from alignment will fit like breath. So pause today and ask yourself, where am I holding on out of fear, not faith? Where am I confusing resistance with loyalty? Where am I performing instead of aligning? And whatever answer comes, trust it. Don't rush it. Don't wrestle it. Just notice it. Because noticing is the first step to releasing. Remember, control often feels like strength, but surrender feels like truth. It doesn't mean you stop setting goals. It means you stop tying your worth to the outcome. You still prepare. You still act. You still stretch. But you no longer panic when life whispers, not yet. You no longer spiral when something ends before you understand why. You no longer sacrifice yourself just to hold something together. Instead, you ask, what is this trying to teach me? What might be growing underneath this ending? Who am I becoming now that I've finally let this go? These are the questions that move you forward. Not, how can I get it back? Not, why didn't they choose me? Not, how could this happen? But what deeper alignment might be unfolding? And that's the Stoic art of surrender. To turn pain into perspective. To let go, not because you're done, but because you've started to see more clearly. You begin to notice that the things that left created space for things that fit, that the endings taught you how to begin again, more honestly, that the uncertainty pulled you deeper into your own grounding. You don't need to understand everything to move forward. You just need to trust what stays when you stop chasing, what remains when the noise quiets, what feels peaceful, not performative. And sometimes that peace doesn't arrive with answers. It arrives with acceptance. It whispers, you're safe even if you don't have clarity yet. So breathe, soften your grip, let life meet you in that space. Because when you stop holding the world hostage to your expectations, you become free. Part 4. The quiet return to self. There is a quiet liberation that comes when you finally stop arguing with life. When you stop trying to change the mind of someone who was never meant to understand you. When you stop forcing a timeline that doesn't respect your nervous system. When you stop squeezing yourself into roles and rhythms that no longer nourish your soul. That moment, when you exhale and say, I don't need this to happen in order to be at peace. That moment is sacred. That moment is surrender. Not the kind of surrender that makes you smaller, but the kind that makes you clearer. Because life is always moving. Whether you resist it or not, it shifts. And the more you try to cling to what was, the more pain you invite. You don't owe it to the past to stay there. You don't owe it to your younger self to fulfill every dream they once imagined. You don't owe it to anyone to keep playing a version of you that no longer feels real. Surrender is the moment you say, I release the need to control what no longer fits. I release the tension that came from trying to force something closed to open. I release the belief that my worth is measured by how tightly I can hold on. And in that release, your life breathes. You make room for surprise. You create space for the unplanned. You allow life to bless you in ways your checklist never could, because sometimes you don't get what you thought you wanted. You get something better. Not better because it's shinier. Better because it fits who you really are. And who you are is changing. You're no longer here to chase things that don't feel aligned. You're no longer available for cycles that exhaust you. You're no longer saying yes to what your body says no to. This is surrender. Listening more deeply. Responding more slowly. Letting the noise fall away so you can hear your own soul whisper, this is the way. The Stoics didn't fear change, they welcomed it. Because they understood that clinging is the enemy of peace. That the only way to meet the future is with open hands and a quiet mind. So today, begin again. Not by forcing, not by rushing, but by standing still long enough to feel where life is trying to meet you. Ask yourself gently, what am I still fighting that I no longer need to win? What would happen if I let go of needing to be right and just chose to be real? What version of me would be born if I stopped trying to prove and started choosing peace? Because that version of you, the one who doesn't need to control everything to feel safe, that version is waiting. She's in the pause. He's in the breath. They're in the space between the old narrative and the new one that's trying to be written. But it cannot be written while your hands are still clinging to the pen of the past. Let it go. Trust that what's yours cannot be lost. Trust that if something ends, it's not to punish you. It's to prepare you. Trust that what falls away is not your failure. It's your alignment catching up. Surrender is a doorway, not a death sentence. It's the place where you come home to yourself, not because life gave you what you wanted, but because you finally stopped needing it to. And that kind of freedom, it can't be forced, it can only be allowed. So stand at the edge of this moment and listen. Listen to what no longer calls you. Listen to what is quietly dissolving. Listen to what is rising. Then, choose the version of you that no longer chases, but receives. That no longer grips, but grounds. That no longer resists life's unfolding, but leans into it with eyes wide open. Because this right here, is the magic of surrender. Conclusion. The closing surrender. There is a kind of peace that doesn't arrive when everything makes sense, but when you stop needing it to. A kind of freedom that doesn't come from getting everything you asked for, but from realizing you already have enough to begin again, and a kind of strength that doesn't roar in the face of life's chaos, but breathes deeply and says, I trust the becoming. I trust the letting go. I trust the space in between. This is the quiet power of surrender. Not the surrender of weakness, but of wisdom. Not the kind that walks away from life, but walks into it fully, without fear, without force. You won't always know what's next. You won't always understand why things fell apart. But if you allow it, you will become someone who no longer needs everything to go right, to feel that they are already all right. You are not here to control it all. You're here to flow with it, to meet what rises, to let go when it's time, to open your hands and say, I am not chasing anymore. I am choosing. I am ready. I surrender. Let this be your practice, not once, not only in moments of crisis, but every day. The quiet pause before you respond, the gentle release before you act, the soft decision to stop clinging, stop defending, stop forcing, and just be present with what is. Because everything you truly need has a way of arriving when you're no longer trying to micromanage the miracle. So breathe. Let the old weight drop and step forward with empty hands, ready to receive what was always yours. And if this message spoke to you, if it softened your grip, slowed your mind, or helped you remember your own strength, I invite you to subscribe to Stoic Zen. This is a space for your soul to rest, to return, to recalibrate, not through noise, but through wisdom, not through control, but through courage, not through chasing, but through surrender. Thank you for walking this path today. And until next time, stay rooted, stay present, and above all, stay open.